I signed in as JJ?
I am as JJ first.
We're both signed in as JJ. How is that possible? I don't sign myself in as JJ. That's weird.
You cannot be as JJ. Let me see.
It
yes,
looks...
we both are JJ.
I'm going to leave and join again.
Okay.
Hello. So I think we
might-
might have got the meeting settings as having a
with the people to make. That is actually fine because it helps explain to avoiding explanations why I am JJ and all sorts of stuff to them.
yeah, it's not a problem, is it?
Yeah, it's not a problem.
So
We might have lost Matt Fillsbury, who was waiting and who has left. He will come back. Probably he might come back.
probably.
Yeah. Okay. I'll make you as host and then I will leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as that should be fine.
And then I join back. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Cool.
right. Okay. So I go and then you can let people in. Right.
Yep.
So I go in. Right. No. Here. Right. I make you spotlight. Make a host.
Does Zoom do multiple rooms as well?
Yes, of course. Zoom was
Okay.
the first introduced to rooms, I think.
Excellent. Oh,
Yeah.
we've got people waiting in the room. I'll invite them in.
Yeah. Okay, I leave and I will join back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem. I will see if there's a way of changing this so that we don't have a meeting room. Hi, Alan.
Hello, I can speak now.
How are you doing?
How are you doing? I'm good. Straight onto YouTube, is it?
Yeah, stream straight. Let's have a look. Sorry, I thought I've set this meeting up incorrectly so that we've got some room that people go into instead of coming straight into the call. But we'll handle that. I'll just keep on admitting people as we go through.
You cool if I check on my video?
Pardon?
You cool if I put my video on, yeah?
Yeah, of course. More the merrier.
All right, Terence. Yeah.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
All right, good. Yeah, yourself?
Not too bad, thanks. Not too bad at all.
That beard's a lot bushier since the last time I saw.
A lot grayer as well, but thank you for not saying that.
I wouldn't do that. I just said a healthier, bushier one.
Right. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we'll give it a few minutes. You'll have to excuse me. My dogs are wandering free. I've been left to fend for myself. The family have gone on holiday, so there might be dogs barking in the background. Anything could happen in the next couple of hours.
Oh my God.
So,
Hi there.
Hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
How are you?
How you doing?
Hi,
Fran.
Anne.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Had a bit of a hiccup, but I'm back now. So yeah, that's good.
See
Looking
you.
forward to it. Hey, good to see everybody.
Yeah, fantastic. It's so happy to see you. You have been to all our meetups, haven't you? It's when we started in person. From then on, yeah.
Yeah, it's very different doing things remotely, but yeah, I think we've got the technical gremlins, playing havoc sometimes, but yeah, that's good.
Yeah, cool. Hi, Alan.
Oh yeah, how are you?
We are good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Cheers for inviting me along. Terence, I really thought I'd burnt so many bridges when I worked with you before, but only kidding.
Why would you have burnt bridges?
No, it was always a pleasure.
Apart from walking around with that can of gasoline and matches, really.
It was the constant swearing, and people they didn't get rid of me. It was great.
People are trying to get rid of you.
It wasn't constant swearing. Sometimes you had to take a breath.
It was good fun. I saw on a list there's a couple of people from a few of the different gigs I've been on as well. So There might be quite a variety of government people here today.
Mm.
Definitely. Let's have a look.
Janet from my recent gig has joined.
Nice. Hello, Janet.
She's on mute.
So be one moment with breakout rooms.
We need breakout rooms. Okay.
So I put it for 3 different groups, but depending on how many people turn up, I'd say multiples of 5, and I can just copy and paste something here. Is that going to work, or is there an issue?
I have no idea how to produce the breakout rooms, but people seem confident.
You should have a button at the bottom that says breakouts if you're the admin for it.
If you can change me as a host, I can manage that, Terence, anytime.
Okay. Check that you've got the thing.
After you present it, or I can make the presentation by anyone and then make me as a host.
Okay. We'll do it in a little while. I haven't got it on the iOS app. Doesn't appear as an option for me.
Making me host, is that available for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you make me host,
check it now. See if you've got the option to do it.
Yeah, I can see that. People are waiting in the room. I am admitting them already. Right. Okay. So let me check. Yeah, I can make breakout rooms. So I make 3 rooms, right?
Yeah. If you make 3 rooms, and we'll see sort of how many people turn up. If there's more than 15 people, then maybe we'll do a couple more rooms, and I'll be sharing a slide deck with everyone. Will have edit rights on it, so they'll be able to add to some slides and do it that way instead of using Mural or any real collaborative tool. You can tell I've been working with my hands tied for a little while.
All right. Okay. Would it work if we make you as the host? Is that what you would like?
If you could do the admin, that would actually save me losing focus.
Okay. Yeah.
If you can see how many people are in and how many sort of groupings, just tell me, and I'll quickly create some more slides.
Yeah.
It's because I will just stop talking, stare at something else, and probably tip my head around, and people just get really bored really quick.
Okay.
Well, can't imagine that happening.
Right. Okay.
A bloke that can't multitask. It's difficult to breathe and speak, isn't it?
We seem to have lost someone.
Jeff, there is Madhav, there is Janet, Abel. Hello.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Right.
Hiya.
Hiya.
Hello, sorry, I'm just eating dinner.
How are you all?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, not bad.
We had started getting people from all over the globe, haven't we? Anyone from outside UK today? Okay, just us then this time.
Okay.
Our pizza sharing has stopped, but I am having pizza. I'm really sorry about that.
Alan, Ben Lovett just said he would have loved to join, but it's just been called away. He obviously saw you'd got your bridge burning kit.
Oh dear, did he join for half a second?
Yeah.
Was that who the Ben was it? I didn't realise it was Ben.
Yeah, it was Ben who joined. Wanted to join, but called away. So, yeah, just sent a message. I'll just check on the site to see if we've got any comments. Anyone struggling to get in? We're looking all right.
Yeah, we're okay.
Right. Make me host. I can start. We're a couple of minutes in. Are you still admitting people to the room?
You can still share your screen. We don't have to.
Sure. Oh, yeah, there we go.
By the way, it's live on YouTube. Just
Can you get barred from YouTube for swearing?
it will be marked as a inappropriate content.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
after 48 hours, isn't it?
All right, so we're good for 48 hours.
We got 48 hours window to swear and do what.
Yeah, you can swear live, you see.
Right, welcome everyone. My name's Terence Darling. Welcome to the Telford Agile meetup. I'm joined by Prem. Do you want to say hello, Prem?
Hello.
And you're very welcome to join us. Hopefully we're going to pick up some new skills today. So we've got some sponsors. Capgemini sponsors the actual meetup. If we're meeting in person, they'd also be providing pizza and drinks for us. Unfortunately, we're doing virtual meetups now. I'd also like to thank JJ from Wiser Tribes, who provides a Zoom account and capabilities. So today we've got a talk from Alan Jennings. It's going to be 10 quick tools for your Agile coaching tool belt. Believe there may be some practical elements to this as well. And without further ado, we will move on to Alan. So Alan, would you like me to make you a host and be able to present?
Yeah, I'm just clicking a button now. Hopefully,
there you go.
You can all see.
Yes, can see.
Okay, I'm going to turn it to present mode. Right. How many people have we got on the call? Was it 11 people? I was going to quickly change the title to "How to Disappoint 11 People," but we'll see how it goes. So the talk I'm going to do today is 10 quick tools to level up your coaching tool belt. I thought I'd start up with talking about me, why I'm standing here sort of on the call. So about me, so contractor based in the south of England, work for my own company, Blue Jay Agility, that was on the previous page. I'm a dad of 2 kids, 2 and 4. So I just came back from dropping them off at nursery and ended up skipping out on dinner. So I'm desperately looking at the pizza being eaten and very, very jealous. My likes are wine and my dislikes are frogs, which is really unfortunate because for some reason in my garden there's about 100 of them. And I work in an office at the bottom of my garden and they literally are blocking me in sometimes, which can be my excuse for not going back in and changing nappies quick enough. My career, I was a developer for 10 or so years, kept falling into the lead developer role and a Scrum Master role, and then really enjoyed being a Scrum Master and decided that was where I wanted to spend my time. Focus on being a Scrum Master, focus on being then a coach and picking up God knows how many tools along the way. What I'm going to try to do today is to share some of those tools, but I do have a bit of a reputation for trying to share too much at once and spreading ourselves too thin so that we can't actually get practical and apply any of them. So I'm going to try and focus it a little bit today. I've done loads of government work, spent the last 10 or so years working in different government departments. I was fortunate enough to be working with Terence at HMRC, currently over at Ministry of Defence doing some work over there, whilst also doing training courses in SAFE. Don't hurt me, I know some people aren't into that. I love it personally. And IC Agile bits as well. Moment my career took a change, in case people are interested, was I realised quite simply no one was going to do it for me. If I wanted to go on a course, if I wanted to learn stuff, if I really wanted to further myself, I had to go out, find the people, get myself on the mission to actually to learn and to grow. Specifically what I did was worked out who I wanted to get into a room with and learn from. And it's worked quite well. More recently, I got to co-facilitate something with Simon Powers from AWA, which was a pretty cool moment to be working alongside someone that I've been aspiring to learn from over many years. There's a link there to my LinkedIn profile. I think it will be on the meetup as well, in case people want to stalk, add, and send abuse afterwards. So what we're going to do today, the agenda we're going to follow is we're going to cover the 10 tools. We're then going to dive deep into each of their tools because to start off with, it's going to be fairly light to touch from the top. There'd be potentially a 5-minute comfort break if people need it. I know that people have just come from different meetings and that. and they might have literally just rushed through their lunch. Then we will then look into, rush through their dinner. Then we're going to look at a couple of case studies that I've gone and created. I've anonymized as much as possible, but I expect people to grab their head in shame as they realize that they've worked in these environments before. And we're going to have a crack at applying what we've learned to these case studies. And then coming back, sharing afterwards with each other what we've learned, how we would handle those situations, and how we would be able to use these tools. I put a little note up at the top there in bold. You will need a pen and paper to draw with. I'd also encourage people to turn their cameras on, because there will be a bit of a sharing exercise where you will be holding up stuff to the screen. Be prepared to share, be prepared to take part. Meetups, they can be nice, they can be fun for gathering information, but I'm a big believer you've got to do it, you've got to get your hands dirty, and you get what you give in these situations. So before I go on to what these 10 tools are, there's a picture of Bob the Builder. Personally, I always like to see it as Batman with his utility belt. And I like to think of the Scrum Master and the product owner as a bit of a Batman and Batman, each bringing different utilities to the conversation. When I initially gave the title to the talk over to Terence, I had it in my head that I was going to do one of those bog standard presentations where someone talks about the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, where I was going to dive around each of the segments and talk about a few tools in each of those spaces, and a couple of little learning exercises, maybe a couple of tools that you can pick up and dive into yourselves. Then I thought that's a bit boring. That's been done and dusted by a lot of people. And then I remembered a quote a friend said to me a while ago when I first started off on my sort of Scrum Master journey, was that you've got 2 eyes and you've got 1 mouth. And that was a key to being a Scrum Master, was to be as observant as possible and not be sort of barking at the orders, and create the right environment and the culture for the team. So you have to bear with me. I've tried using that metaphor and attaching to it the 10 tools that you've got at your disposal. At this point, I was half expecting people to just rage quit and jump out this conversation, because for someone to tell you that you've got 2 eyes, 1 mouth, 2 ears, 1 brain, 2 hands and 2 feet, and that's your tools, you're going to think, how the hell is that supposed to be something that levels up me on my coaching journey or on my toolkit? So what I'm going to try and do is link to each of these to show how they can be practical applications to this in your day in and day out, how to be a decent coach, enterprise coach, whatever the bullshit job title you want to call yourself by, is how you can do that without the need of being the most educated person in the room, the person who's dived so deep into each of the quadrants on the coaching framework, the person who knows Scrum, XP, Kanban, God knows what, each of the frameworks inside and out, when actually just being a human, using some of the basic stuff that we've been born with, and applying that can make a huge difference to the organizations that you're working with. So your ears. Yeah, we've all got 2 ears. What does that mean? So active listening or different levels of listening might be something that you've come across. There is first level, I can listen to someone talking, but there's a high chance that my inner monologue will take over. A fair bit of judgment will be there. I'll be trying to direct the conversation or totally making assumptions as to where they're going. Second level of listening is I'm fully there, I'm fully absorbing what they're saying, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm with them. And the third level is going beyond the listening part and actually being more observant as to how the temperature in the room, how the person's interacting, how possibly they're moving, possibly a little bit of body language as well. So you're taking that on board, but you're truly with them on their story. Understanding the history and the timeline. This is something that became pretty crucial for me when I was working with a company a few years ago. The company had changed how they'd worked over a 20-year period. They were used to working in more traditional ways because the company originally was more manufacturing. Then suddenly it moved over into software delivery. They had to change the way they worked with people. I had to listen to how the managers spoke to people, how they spoke about problems, how they spoke about their interactions. Plotted it out on a timeline for them, made them realize how things had changed. You can even look at simple stuff at the moment or over the last sort of 18 months, how things have changed with us for how we booked meetings in with people, how we got people together into conversations. Listen to how people used to interact to how they currently interact. Next one I've got on there regarding your ears is what's left unsaid and why. We have lots of time that we spend together in meetings. Maybe people aren't feeling comfortable in sharing everything. Maybe at this meetup, not everyone's going to speak. Maybe some people might work together in their day jobs and they don't feel like calling out a problem that they're experiencing. So psychological safety is something you can observe, that you can listen out for, that you can see that there's problems with some interactions. And that's when you see it happening, there are tools that you can bring to your disposal to start creating a safe environment. If it's in basic facilitation, you're trying to organize a meeting, maybe you set up an agenda at the start, maybe you set up some ground rules, maybe you make it a little bit fun for people. Feel that they can share, they can be as psychological safe as possible. Team charters, team canvas, it's a great tool to use. I think I've got a link for that later on. Really simple one, set some ground rules for how people are going to communicate, how people are going to work within the time period that they've got. Again, with 2 ears, is interviewing people. When you're turning up on an engagement, there's nothing wrong with asking a few people questions. Find out what was done before, for the history, for the timeline. Find out what problems exist. Interviews and health checks are a pretty big thing. Loads of them exist all over the place now. Type into Google, you come up with 100 different ones. Spotify one, loads based around the Agile Manifesto. Have a look to see how you can gather data, how you can listen, really use your ears, gather as much information as possible. A couple of notes I've got down there specifically to do with facilitating meetings or facilitating ceremonies or groupings, gatherings, whatever you want to call it. Is there a loudest voice in a meeting? Are other people not able to speak? What's the number of interactions that's happening? You've got 40 people in a room, only 6 people are talking. What does that say to you? Should the other 34 people be in a room? Is there any point in them actually being there? Does everyone actually know what the purpose was for this conversation? I'm expecting Terence to start smiling in a bit as I realise a lot of this is linked to our previous work and something that you messaged me about the other day as well.
I can't believe that's possibly the case.
Wait till you see the case studies, mate. Right?
It's all very valid. Okay.
So you got one mouth. I said, when my friend mentioned it to me, he said, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth, focus on that. Focus on contributing less, let the room speak, see what's going on, observe the interactions. Share of voice and social currency. So share of voice, just grab a book from behind. So Marquette's Leadership is Language, pretty damn good read. You're recognizing him from the book Turn the Ship Around, which I thought was absolutely amazing. Hit and miss with some people, but I quite liked it. I quite liked the real story about how some simple changes introduced on a submarine helped people become better leaders, feel that they could share, feel that they could talk about things. He set up some ground rules for conversations, create psychological safety. It's a lot of stuff that I'll be touching on as well. Social currency, that was a term that a friend of mine was using quite a lot in Ministry of Justice. He was talking about similar to the share of voice concept that comes from the leadership as language. When you're in a room, when you're in a meeting, there's only so much time, say 60 minutes, for example. You've got one person speaks for half an hour. They've absorbed so much of the voice time, the currency, the interaction time that's existed. So being aware of that, being aware of how much time you're absorbing versus the group. Communicate our intent and our outcomes. If you're not clear about what you're trying to do, then you're just doing stuff. So make sure that with a group, when you're talking about going through a transformation, when you're talking about any challenges that we're facing, where you want to be going, being on a roadmap, be it on an engagement, when you might be trying to transform an organization, make sure you're as clear as bloody possible about what the intent is behind each session. Radical Candor, again, lovely little book. Audiobook's pretty cool as well. Talks about a beautiful intent. What I like to think is if every interaction that you have at work, the worst case is never actually the worst case you think it is. I have not seen anyone or had the experience myself where someone has reacted so badly to something that I've done that they flipped a table, or that they punched me in the face. So if you think about that as a top end of something's gone really bloody bad, then if you say something with the most beautiful intent of, I think something's wrong, we need to change it, no one's going to punch you in the face or flip a table. As long as you communicate it well, communicate about your intent and your outcomes, I think you're going to be safe. Again, people don't get fired that often. Barely seen it. Out of all the days I've turned up into the office, I think only on 2 occasions, and to be honest, they were pretty crap. They deserved it. Bit harsh of me saying that, especially saying it's been recorded, I just realised. So what I put down at the bottom, a couple of things that are really key on communicating and effectively communicating. Make sure you've got a decent agenda. Make sure that you communicate your purpose. Put down your outcomes, what it is we're trying to do, why we're getting together, why we're having this conversation, why it's worth people spending their bloody time in it. Reflective questions. They're a cool little tool to chuck in. Halfway through a session, towards the end, just make sure that you're asking a few reflective questions to, do you all feel that we're working towards our outcome from today's session? What could help us achieve that outcome? What do you need? What's being left unsaid at the moment? A few questions like that might probe the room to get a bit more involved. So I'm going to introduce the first tool. Oops, there's a camera. Meeting Spicer. It's created by a friend of mine. I think it links to his Facebook page if you type it in onto Google. And the idea behind it is, at the start of any meeting, at the end of any meeting, he asks a 30-second reflective question to the group. What's the purpose of today? What's your role in the meeting? If we can make this the best meeting ever, what would we do? Sometimes it's reflective, silent questions where people just think for a second. Sometimes it's where people, if they feel like it, they share to the group. At the end of it, it's what was left unsaid. What would have made this meeting the best instance of this meeting as we could have. There's a few cards in there for roles as well. Someone playing a role of a scribe, someone playing a role of a timekeeper, holding up cards as well to the facilitator to make sure that things are on track. Pretty simple little technique. I loved it. Found it to be a bit of a game changer. Tried applying it as much as possible. Think I used it a couple of times at MOJ remote as well. Sorry, at HMRC when I was remote, and that went down all right. Managed to keep the group on track. So this is where I'm going to ask people to come off mute. I've covered a few things already, a few little tools that we could look into. I've introduced the model as well. Terence has seen me do this before as well, so I can see he's prepared. If you can, send your camera on as well. It'd be nice to see some faces. We've got a few on the screen already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a timer for 60 seconds. And what I'm after from you guys as a group is just to say what you've learned so far, what I've asked, what I've spoken about, and what's landed for you. And we're going to keep a score to see how many things you've actually listened and you've actually understood. And then later on, we might run this quiz again to see if we can beat that score. So all I'm asking is a 60-second timer, and you talk. If 2 people talk at once, it doesn't count. So we've got to stop those 2 people. 1 talks at a time, says the thing that they've learned. If there's a unique, they have to be unique as well. So we can't have duplicates. We can't just say the same thing again. So this is my test to see whether you've learned anything as well. Cool. Can I get a round of nods to say people understand it, or any questions? Okie dokie. 60-second timer. Now.
Not something that I've learned, but something that I feel is really, really important is 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Cool. That's one.
I've heard that one before a couple of times, and I'll be honest, I wasn't expecting, when you said we might have a lot of people leaving, I'm still here, but it wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it would be like specific tools and techniques, but I'm still here. So so far it's just good to listen.
So having the reflective meeting, start and end, in terms of what the meeting value was and what was the purpose of it. I think that was really good, specifically while we are working all remote. It becomes very important, because when you have large number of, I don't want to say crowd, but you mentioned 40 members in a room and only a couple of them speaking. I like, I don't like to throw frameworks, but Scrum having that 6 to 9 people sort of a way of working makes a lot of sense at times, and having that say, everybody having that say within that time box makes, I think it relates to a lot of past experiences.
Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing. Now the timer is out. So we ran out of 60 seconds there. I got 3 unique things we spoke about there. So what we'll do is, said at the end, we'll run another pop quiz, and we'll see how many items we can talk about. We can obviously go over the stuff that's been covered so far. Now we're going to go into the 2 eyes. So using your eyes, observing the body language. Person in the top right there is a great example. Someone who's not engaged. So it might be you've got the cameras off. How can you tell if people are engaged in your call, if people are awake, people are there? You see within someone's, when we're face to face, you can see people's body language. You can see where their hands positioned are as well. We've got people drinking there as well. I remember someone talking about this a while ago. Was you can tell how comfortable people are based on where their hand position is when they meet someone. The idea, the premise behind sort of a handshake and a hug. Obviously, COVID times, we're not necessarily able to do that as much as we used to be able to. But the idea behind a handshake was that you expose your belly to someone. Same with a hug, which in the days when people used to stab each other if they didn't like each other, that showed an instant level of trust. The same with banging your glasses together to say cheers. The idea behind that was a little bit of your drink went into that person's drink, and a little bit of their drink went into yours. So you'd both get poisoned, or none of you would get poisoned. So we used to have a few little tells to see whether a room felt comfortable with each other, or whether people felt comfortable with each other. And we can still see some of them. You can still see within someone's eyes whether they're focused on you, or whether on a call they've gone off, they've dropped in the bottom right, they're imagining something, or they're off daydreaming. Maybe you can just about see the eyes have just gone off and they're looking down at their phone. So these tells do exist. So keep using your eyes to have a look to see what's going on with the room. I put down there as well, observe the unwritten culture. Who's comfortable with who? Similar thing, you can see people in a room, whether they're having a bit of banter with each other, whether people are sitting with each other, whether people go out for lunch with each other as groups. Who's comfortable, who's there supporting each other. When you're dealing with company change, that can be useful to see, because there will be cliques, there will be little groups that are hanging around and will be more willing to be part of each other. That can actually be a great center of influence for you if you can get into one of those cliques, which might be more influential than working on people's professional areas. That can then help create those communities of practice and can help actually build up the momentum for change. Wall of text, death by PowerPoint, is there an alternative? Yes, very much so. Get people involved, get people together, get them drawing, playing around. I've got some examples of some drawings there, some vocabulary. There's different tools that people can play with. Visualize a problem, stimulate people's bloody eyes, get them looking at things, get them dancing around the room. Use the wall space, online and offline, to communicate. I used to, one of the offices I was in, we only had a column, just literally a support column in a building for us to put stuff on. So we had to use each side of it as much as possible. We had our team board there, we all stood up around it and we spoke. We used to use that as our focus point for the day, simple things that people have been doing for years and years. On one side of it, there was a wall of same, which was a very, very silly, fun idea. And people turned up to work wearing similar outfits to each other. We took a photo of them, printed it off and put it on the wall. It's just quite fun for a laugh. So it might be 2 people wearing a similar shirt. There might be someone who's got 2 striped tops, or what we used to refer to as, I think it was referred to as a middle-aged man shirt, which was the basic white shirt with lines going down it, the typical striped shirt. It just looked like everyone had gone to Marks and Spencer's men's section that day. Everyone rocked up in it. So that was quite funny. And then the waist snake, that was a tool that we introduced to visualize the perception of waste within a sprint. So all it had on it was a head and tail of a snake, drawn on a piece of paper. And for every time the team believed that they were wasting their time, be it with a meeting, with a conversation, someone interrupting them or anything, or even email chains. They were writing a post-it note, how much time was wasted and what it was with. We put that on and we filled up the body of a snake. You can have a quick Google of this. It's a technique that's been used in quite a few places. I first heard of it at Ocado. They did a presentation at Agile on the beach a few years ago. And I adopted it at Bays when I was over there, and that was pretty cool. I used it to work out what the team believed was waste, and that on its own is good because the team had communicated what they thought was waste was, and I ended up seeing that some interactions I was having with the team were being perceived as waste. We then changed how we were all working, set up some ground rules, made sure that we created green time and red time for them when they could be interrupted, when they couldn't be. And we allowed them to focus a bit more and not have to deal with context switching and bullshit problems. Gestalt coaching, maybe it should be under the voice, under the mouth part. Quite simply, playing back, be the mirror and play back what you're seeing interaction-wise, what you're hearing from people. Gestalt coaching is a lot more than that, but it might be when you're having a conversation with someone, when they're moving their hands around a bit, when you play back that and you ask them, what does that mean? What is that interaction to you as they're talking about something? They're using it as a metaphor. With a team, for example, you might notice that the team, they're going out for lunch or excluding a certain person. They might not realize they're doing it. That person might be sitting at their desk. They might not feel comfortable. Again, psychological safety that I talked about earlier on in saying to the team that maybe they would like to be involved. You play back that to the team, say to them what they're going to do. Just playing back, be the mirror, help people see what's going on. I've also used this with earlier on when I talked about 40 people turning up to a meeting, only 6 people talking. When I played back to the group and said, what the hell's going on with the other 34 people? Why aren't you talking? That was me holding up the mirror to them. They could use it as they pleased. Fortunately, no one dropped off the call, which would have been handy in that situation. But be the mirror, say it with the best intent, play back that information. Don't be an arsehole. No one's an arsehole, in my opinion. No one gets out of bed to be a dick. Gather data and dive into the results for the health checks. Covered that a little bit briefly when I talked about different types of health checks that exist. We can use that information, hold it up in front of their team and say, we scored low in this section. What does that mean? They can then choose how they want to play it. Hands and playfulness and be creative. This is a space I love being in. So behind me, you can see up there, my Lego, my games, my stuff that I love breaking out. Was on a Lego Serious Play course a few months ago with, what's his name? Sean Blair. Sorry, his book's next to me, I forgot about that. Sean Blair, pretty damn interesting. Great guy to learn from. He is one of the top facilitators in the UK. Learned tons about facilitation from him, as well as how to play with Lego at work for professional reasons. And it's just fun. Start being creative with people. Get them to think about a problem in a different way. Get them to build something out of Lego. Get them to talk about it. Get them to draw a picture. I was sort of saying on the last one, using that vocabulary. Play with your hands as opposed to trying to write something down, trying to talk about things. People will not remember it. If it's in a slide deck or if it's just in a conversation, people are more likely to remember what they've drawn, what they've made out of Lego, what they've spoken about, sort of joined in as part of the conversation about. So build things, use Lego, use Play-Doh, use whatever's at your disposal. Get a sheet of paper out, get people to draw a journey, draw what they've been experiencing, draw a sprint. What's wrong with that? There's literally no problems. You can learn vocabulary, you can find out courses about it. There's loads of people are doing it online now as well. You can pick up the books, all of it's available online. That was the approach I took with it. Played around with the pens, lots of cool stuff. Then I've got links there, well, mentions there to Tasty Cupcakes, a great website. Play 14, I'm totally biased because I organise a London Play 14 event. There are more, they're all over the world. They're great fun. We get people together and we just run through Agile games for 2 days over a weekend, plus there tends to be a big party. And cheeky enough, if it focuses, this game was made at Play 14. Here we go, there's a link to it. Games can be great. There's a little quote I put at the bottom about take people outside of their comfort zone, make them comfortably uncomfortable. I personally love feeling a little bit uncomfortable. At times it means I'm challenging myself. You might feel initially that's a bit a bit silly, a bit crazy, asking the room to play with a game, to do something that they wouldn't have normally done, to draw a picture. Even with the top execs in companies, the civil servant execs who I've been working with, it's been a bit cringeworthy at times, but it's been fun and they've actually got onto it. When I was working at Ministry of Justice, I ran a 1 hour games workshop with them, where to start off with, there was a game which shows the value of feedback, how to incrementally improve a system, and how to work as a team as well. And it's called Name Impulse. Videos exist on YouTube for that one. Quite simply, you get a group to stand in a circle, and all they've got to do is say their name. And the person to their left says their name, and it goes on in a circle, and you time it. And you see how quickly you can go around with everyone saying their name. Sounds easy. People will mess it up. It's great fun though. We then got the group to introduce a change that they wanted. What do they think would make them go faster? Someone went, let's just say surnames. Someone said, let's abbreviate some names. Someone said, let's tap each other on the shoulder as we're going through. That ended up in nearly going to HR for someone hitting someone. But it can be great fun, just getting them out of their comfort zone and playing around with a bit of a game. They could see straight away the importance of inspecting and adapting, being a little bit of agile. A game I later did with them that day was got them all to be blindfolded and assigned an animal to them. They had to make an animal noise and they had to find the rest of their herd. I think that was to do with being a self-organizing team. That group, so that game is in the Play 14 list of games. So on that website, there's tons of games you can have a read of. What was quite amusing is it got brought up at Ministry of Defence, where I'm working at the moment, by someone who I didn't realise, or I've forgotten their name, and assumed it was a different person who'd actually worked with me. And suddenly it comes through the director level that I'm the person who makes people make animal noises in a room. And it's nice to be remembered for something. I've got to say, it's nice to be remembered. So at least I got remembered for that, not the other 5 exercises that I ran through that day. But it made a difference. And I've since been asked to run other workshops with them. So be different, have some fun with it. This game, oh, keep forgetting where my camera is. Agile 101 is available on Amazon. It's created by a company called 101 Ways. I've forgotten the name of the lady that created it. I should remember her name. I know she's got purple hair and I can literally visualize her. It's quite simply Dungeons and Dragons style game where you are building YouTube for cat videos. You assign someone a role of a Scrum Master, you assign someone a role of a product owner, and you have developers in there. I brought it out to test it with a group at Ministry of Justice, and there was a junior product owner who had come across from a few different roles, had experienced something which I'm sure a few other people in this room will recognize, where someone had waved a wand and said, you're now going to go from this role into this role. You're going to be a product owner now with no formal product owner training, but we know you've got some people skills, and before you were working as a probation officer. This person had all the right skills, but hadn't had the training and they needed some guidance. This game ended up being a game changer for them, where they were suddenly able to see how it could be applied, what the role actually meant, when suddenly they could see the value of the work that was in front of them. There's cards in there to do with all the features that can be built, the complexity of them, which is where the dice rolling comes into play, and how many items you can fit into your sprint based on how big the team is, the success, the metrics, all of this comes into play, setting goals. It's absolutely fascinating for an out-of-the-box game to teach people the simplistic parts of Agile and of Scrum. Now, before I dive into too many things, I'm quite aware of time, and we've got some more body parts to go through. The bottom here, I'm going to introduce a concept from training from the back of the room, which is the 6 trumps. Yet for some reason, I seem to think there's 7 trumps. So I wonder whether I've got the wrong picture there, or I haven't read the book enough. So quite simply, the way that the lovely lady Sharon Bowman talks about it is images trump words, talking trumps listening, movement trumps sitting, writing trumps reading, shorter trumps longer, different trumps the same. So if we were in a room together, I'd have had you walking around a room already for part of this workshop. I'd have had you for the quiz exercise. I'd have had you standing up and sitting down very bloody quickly, getting the blood flowing in the group, and having you involved in micro conversations with each other about challenges and problems that you've seen, having you playing around with the pens and actually applying some of this. And I'd have probably even thrown some Lego at you so you can actually see the value of it and talking about it. I definitely feel that introducing concepts this way and getting people playing around in different environments in shorter cycles makes a huge difference in doing a massive big workshop of someone talking at them. But I have piss poorly organised this, so it is me talking at you for a while. I'm trying to have a few interactions, so maybe in a bit we'll be having some fun. Holy shit, straight into one. Cameras on, please. Have you got a post-it note? Have you got a piece of paper? Have you got a pen or something? Now, I'm not expecting the Mona Lisa. I'm not expecting you to go crazy with this. But what I'm hoping you to do, with your automatic background, you might have a bit of trouble trying to show your piece of paper to the screen. I had this issue a few times with people before. So what I want you to do on a piece of paper in 30 seconds, I'm going to make it a tight time scale for this. I want you to draw what you've learned so far and then hold it up to the screen. So I'm going to set a timer for 30 seconds. Draw something that you feel comfortable with. Good effort there. 30 seconds. So you've got 20 seconds left over. Just draw, and then we're going to hold it up to the screen. Okay, 10 seconds. And when you're done, hold it up to the screen. Okie dokie. Now, who feels comfortable talking about their picture very quickly in 30 seconds?
The waste around snake, I think it is really good, specifically in public sector when we're running sprints. There are a lot of people with a lot of meetings. The Scrum team is not as protected, and if this can be used perhaps as a retrospective tool as well, perhaps as identifying from the product perspective if there are waste that we are delivering. So I think this was really good.
Cool, thank you for sharing. Who else would like to share?
There's been lots of good stuff, but I'm one of these who just loves little facts. So I did not know that poison cheers. So I'll be using that. So yeah, can you see the picture?
Go just about. I can see two. Looks like two champagne flutes banging together. It keeps going in and out of.
Right.
That is Sydney behind you, isn't it?
That's effectively what it is. Two glasses with poison potentially going in. So yeah, there's lots of other stuff, but I do like little sound bites like that. So yeah.
Okie dokie. And Steve, while you've got yours up.
Yeah, I've just drawn the very rudimentary face with the two ears and the one mouth.
Oh, nice.
To show the attention and the eyes focusing, two eyes on things. So that's the bit I picked up on. But I do like a lot of the other things you've mentioned. It's reminded me of stuff that I've learned from the past and remembering it.
Okie dokie.
That's a fair point as well, because a lot of this stuff we've learned in the past, and you're just refreshing it and bringing it to the fore again, and it's all good stuff.
You just reminded me of something that I didn't prepare for, and it's going to look absolutely shit and terrible. So a while ago, when I went on my silly, crazy journey on going on to pretty much every single course that I could do and learning from getting to the room with as many people as possible, I created what I refer to as a memory wall. So it might not come in too well, but I started drawing pictures for everything, just sort of like to trigger my memory on different courses I've been on. That one there is about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Somewhere there's going to be journey lines. I think this was specifically around an agile team coaching course I was on. So I started off with, as a picture in my book, I would jump back and forth occasionally, review that page, and just remind myself of the stuff, because you forget stuff so bloody easily here. We've all probably been on too many meetups, too many sort of events, and then suddenly something will just jog your memory and you'd be like, shit, that was it. So then what I did, and this was where my wife probably thought I was going to murder her at some point, was in a disused like back closet room in my house. I started drawing on keynote speaker cards, those pictures in a bit more detail, and then sticking them up like revision cards, like people do before their big exams. You know, you used to see it like in the back of the toilet door when you were getting ready for your GCSEs, your A-levels, or whatever it was, or with your kids as well. Probably a few of you can actually recognize that. So I started creating the physical wall there in the utility in our house. And then I'd go in there every couple of months and actually just start looking around and just remember, shit, that was that thing I should have applied. That was that thing that might have been useful today, or that problem that I've been seeing. Because there's too many acronyms, too many things that get thrown at you. Some people, they've got this photographic, ungodly memory. I don't. I'm more like a goldfish. So might be an interesting technique. That's why I like drawing. I definitely respond better to drawing a few pictures and going back over it. So draw down a few items, see if it works for yourself, skim back to your memory wall, and yeah, see if it helps with retaining a bit more information. But thank you for that. That prompted me on something that I completely forgot about, wasn't prepared about, and ended up showing you a piss poor drawing on a piece of paper. Not my lovely ones like that side, where I do have some nicer pictures which I've shared with people before. Right, next body part we're going into is you got one brain. Now we start talking about time in here, about time to use a brain, time to create space for people to think. Might seem silly about thinking time, but we don't get much of it. Maybe other people experience the same problem that I've seen. Especially in COVID times, when people were working from home, they suddenly wanted to appear more busy. They filled up their calendar. Every hour, every day, they were in a meeting. I work very heavily with civil servants, and before COVID, that was their thing, especially the higher up ones. I remember a lovely lady in head of the program management department who sat me down for coffee one day, opened up her laptop and showed me her calendar, which was just fully booked. And she looked really happy. She went, just look how difficult it is to get time with me. You're blessed to have this 5 minutes for coffee. I went, that's cool, cute, but how do you get anything done? How do you collaborate with the right people? Again, from a place of beautiful intent, maybe a little bit like a smarmy arsehole, but I was trying to get through to her. You need time to think. You need time to spend with the right people to effectively collaborate. Booking time into meetings, those 40 people that were in that call for a couple of hours, what was the bloody point? Were they effectively contributing? Could they have used that time to actually think, to actually group think, to group together and actually work out what the solution is? So a few different techniques about creating time and space to think. Set some ground rules when you're facilitating your sessions. Make sure people know what they can and they can't do. Encourage people if you want. Turn the cameras on. Try to say to people, I know there's a lot of busy work going on, a lot of stuff happening. Please don't jump in and out of this meeting. Don't double book yourself. Commit yourself to this session. Give them some notice about why the meeting is important. I talk about agenda setting later on because I think it's bloody important to set the agenda, set the purpose, set the outcomes for the session. Touched on it very briefly earlier on, but there's a real tool later. Give people time to think with the power of silence. If you ask someone a question and they don't reply, give them 30 seconds. Get used to being in silence. It's a bit uncomfortable to start with. I've been told I'm pretty damn good at it now because I've got used to it. I've asked people questions and I sit there in 2 minutes and 3 minutes of silence if I need to, because I know eventually someone's going to speak, especially in a one-to-one coaching environment. One of us will have to speak. And if I'm a stubborn person who knows they are thinking, they are going to come out with an answer, I will let that person think. The second I speak, their brain engages from thinking to listening, to processing what I'm saying. So in one-to-one environment, especially important. In group think as well, give that person a time to think. Lovely lady, Nancy Klein, has a book called Time to Think. Great title for it. She has a second one out called More Time to Think, because she got really creative with her titles, I believe. It covers a few practical examples, mainly on the coaching spectrum. If you're looking at the Agile Coaching Competency Framework, I did sneak that in again. And And she also talks about some facilitation techniques. A really simple one, if you've got an hour conversation, to give each individual 5 minutes where they can talk about whatever they want, as long as it's to do with the purpose, the agenda. They can air any assumptions, they can air any problems. It's their time. If they stop talking after 3 minutes, guess what? Silent time for 2 minutes. They can say move on, but nope, we stay in silent time. Maybe after 30 seconds, maybe after 40 seconds, they think of something else and they pop back in. We give them the time to come back to it. It can be pretty crucial, giving people the time, and not many people are used to it. So power of silence, especially when you're dealing with groups of introverts, to be able to work out your team, the groups that you're working with, where they sit on introvert, extrovert, whether you're looking at Myers-Briggs spectrum or you're looking at DISC models. They can be useful to see what types of people you're dealing with. You can do your own quite easy self-assessment. Google it, loads of them exist. I'm not going to share that with you because that'd be a waste of a couple of slides here. And then you can just think about how people tend to interact, what they need, how they prefer to actually communicate with each other. Make sure you create the space so everyone can work the way they need to work. This can come around with team charters, team canvas, touched on it earlier on as well, about creating a psychological safe environment. So just being aware of time. Hopefully I'm not going to overrun with this. And getting people to share how they like to work, asking them. There's nothing wrong with asking someone, do you like emails? Do you like talking in group meetings? What can I do to create the right environment for you to work at your best? Get them to share it with the rest of the team. Creating team manuals can be a quite cool, simple technique. I think I shared that with Terence before I left, so it might have been passed on into the rest of HMRC. Have a Google for that one about team manuals, or what's the other term that people use? Team README or my README file. Was it the one that they tend to use with technical people to try to convince them it's cool and geeky? I quite like doing an exercise with people where I get them to almost draw a top trumps card of themselves, where they talk about what the skills that they've got, maybe the skills that the team know, the skills that the team don't know. I think that's mentioned on Play 14, definitely on Tasty Cupcakes. There's a few examples of that. You get people to draw a cartoon of each other as well, similar to the top trumps card, and they get to share the skills that might be hidden under their table of where they might be able to contribute with each other. Last thing I've got there is stop booking back-to-back meetings, try to make more useful time. And also, I said it a little bit earlier on about stop double booking people's times. There is nothing worse than someone turning up for the first 5 minutes of the session, ignoring the bloody agenda, and then say it's a 2-hour call that you've unfortunately had to do. They drop in for the last half hour and they just drop off grenades of conversation of the shit they give a fuck about, as opposed to the agenda and where the conversation is going, and they derail everything. If you see that happening, call it out, stop that bloody person from talking, bring them back to the agenda, otherwise they will completely ruin the conversation. As a facilitator, give yourself the permission to do that, set that up with the ground rules at the start, and if someone joins back in, just stop them talking and say, sorry, you missed the first half, do you mind dropping out? I was on a call the other day. Maybe this is just a thing that they do specifically within Ministry of Defence, because it's quite sensitive information that we can be talking about at times. And this is something that I should be allowed to share because I'm not going to divulge any sensitive stuff. I realise this is going onto YouTube, so I might get sacked straight after, hopefully not. When someone joined a call midway through, they were asked why they were there, what was the purpose, who they were, what their rank was, and why they weren't there for the start of it. There were a few people who might say be dialing in from phones, appearing as anonymous, which is like the worst thing that you can do on a Zoom call or on a Teams call. So all conversations stopped dead until we identified what that person was, why they were there, and why they hadn't been in beforehand. You want to see why people are committing to a session. Right, 2 feet. Gemba walks is the first thing I'm talking about. So Gemba comes from, I'm pretty sure it comes from Toyota manufacturing process. It was quite a simple principle of go see. Walk around the shop floor, walk around the factory, understand what's actually happening, see the problems, observe, recognize, communicate, cooperate, and help be part of the team. There was a technique which I haven't mentioned here that I think Toyota introduced, that on everyone's first day as management, instead of going into a lovely ivory tower and carrying on being typical management types, first thing we had to do was walk around, see what was happening. And at the end of the day, there was a box on the floor that someone had drawn down there. I've done this before with tape as well. In the middle of a meeting room, in the middle of a workshop, I've got some facilitators tape, it's painter's tape is the stuff you tend to use because it's stronger for holding up the flip charts. Put some painter's tape into a lovely little square and said to everyone, stand in there, one after each other, and you have to suggest an improvement for the team. So this is what they were doing at Toyota. You had to suggest, from what you've seen, one improvement. I said to each person, you've got 30 seconds to stand in there and suggest an improvement. Reason I did this was they been going for a retro, been talking about stuff, and everyone had been in lovely, lovely theoretical land of, oh yeah, we've got these problems, we've got all this, but no one had given us a bloody solution. No one was willing to hang their hat on a solution. So suddenly, I talked about time in the last one about brain. You can give people lots of time, but also another tool is give people bugger all time, and they will produce something, and they will produce something that you can work with. We've done it with our pictures. I gave you bugger all time. You drew something. You could talk about your drawing. The rest of us could see your drawing. The rest of us were able to understand your drawing. That was within 30 seconds. I could have given you half an hour and you'd have probably drawn something maybe a little bit glammed up, but the way you communicate about it, we wouldn't have gained anything more from that. So take away time can be another cool approach to take. So doing the tape on the floor, saying to someone, give me an improvement, you've got 30 seconds, bang, bang, bang. Suddenly I generated a backlog of a shitload of improvements. We worked out which ones we cared about. Very short, sharp dot voting round. Retro was over in a few minutes, as opposed to the half hour we'd wasted fluffing around, talking about problems beforehand. Okay, so I've talked about the first two already. The third one sort of talked about a little bit when I talked about the trumps earlier on, which the second one links into as well about the movement trump. Keep people moving, get people engaged, get people walking around a room, connecting with their fellow human, and also interacting a bit more, using their voice as opposed to hearing a single person talking about problems for too long. Again, bad example with today with how I'm doing this, but trying to do some of the micro interactions with you so you can get a little bit of it. So I've got an example of something that I did there about micro interactions for a workshop, using liberating structures. If you're not familiar with that, Google them, loads of videos online. There is a completely free app called Lisa on the App Store. The website is absolutely terrible. The app is fantastic to use. So what I did for an exercise where they wanted to work out the strategy for a department for the next 6 months was I got all the individuals, I think it was 40, 50 people in a room, got them to write down a couple of problems that they had seen, got them to then do that individually. So that's one of the 1, 2, 4 all. Had 1 minute to do as many problems as they could. Then they paired up with someone, the two, had 2 minutes to talk about their shared problems. They got them together as a group of 4. The 2 pairs joined together, talked about their problems for 4 minutes. We removed duplicates. We then bubbled up very quickly what the key problems were that the whole room had experienced. Then we voted on which were the 4 key problems that we wanted to deal with. We then moved into 25-10 crowdsourcing, which is a technique where for those 4 key problems, we dealt with them one at a time, and people had to write down their big, bold idea and the first step to that big, bold idea. So we didn't have to solutionize everything. We just had to have 10% of that solution. Then I played music. I got the room to move around. I got them to handshake each other as they went around, and they were passing their card, passing their bold idea around. And when the music stopped, just like musical chairs, they then got to read the card they had. They gave that card a score of 1 to 5. 5, friggin' fantastic idea. Let's all do this. 1, meh. It's all right. Thanks for trying. Did that for 5 rounds. In between each of the rounds, when they were passing the cards around, when they were shaking hands, I then switched the interaction. I got them to do high fives. Then I got them to do hugs if people felt like it. They were actually pretty comfortable. Then I got people to bow and fist bump, I think was the other one. I also ran this at London Agile discussion group a while ago, but that was because people had beer and pizza beforehand, so we're very comfortable doing these games as well. This was when we could do stuff face to face. So at the end of the 5 rounds, each of the cards has got a score on it. From 5 rounds at 5, maximum 5 points, maximum 25 points. So then you go to the room, cool. Anyone got a card in front of them with 25 points on? No, 24, 23, blah, blah, blah. You work downwards until you've got the highest ranking solution. You get the top, maybe 3 or 4 of them, get a flip chart in the corner. This was a problem that was raised. Here's the top 4 solutions that have come out from the group. Chuck those up on there. We then did that for each of the 4 problem areas that got mentioned. Flip chart in each corner of the room with some potential solutions. Split the room up into groups of, say, 7 or so people. Assigned one of the directors, execs, to each of the flip charts. They owned that problem. And everyone spent 10 minutes in each corner fleshing out those ideas to see how we could actually make them land. And they moved around the room, saw what the last group had written, added some more ideas, moved. We ended up creating strategy for, I think it was for 3 months, 6 months or whatever, just based on that 1 hour exercise of getting people talking, getting ideas from the room, getting people scoring it, moving around, talking, feeling like they were part of the problem, part of the solution. Obviously they were part of the problem a little bit, but you get what I mean. So that was cool. That was using 2 liberating structures, chaining them together, getting a bit creative, a bit of fun, getting people moving around and observing. So using my eyes, using my ears, making sure people were safe chatting. Last couple of bits I've talked about already, get people moving around, get some fresh air. Hell, even grab someone for a coffee and go for a walk when we're allowed to do that again. That used to be a great way how I'd make sure I got my couple of coffees in each day. And I used to work just outside St. James's Park in London, which was great for a lovely little walk. And we'd have most of our meetings trotting around there. Cool, we're at 7:30. I've been nattering for a little while, but we are doing a few more exercises in a bit. Name impulse, I've already told you about that one. I knew I mentioned it later on in the slides, but couldn't remember where. So that was a game where people say their names, going around in circles, you time it, you work out how to improve it, how to inspect and adapt. Oh dear, he has snuck it in, the lovely picture to the Agile Coaching Competency Framework. If you've not seen this before, Google it. It will take you to the Agile, is it the Institute for Coaching or Agile Institute of Coaching? Anyway, you'll get to the main website with it. Each of these sections has a ton of links. Those are the tools that you probably really wanted from today's session. Have a look into them. You can click on being an Agile Lean practitioner, and it will show you loads of resources, loads of courses you can go on, loads of things that you can learn to level up that space. What I've done
Alan,
yes, mate.
I was going to say, for your information, in the chat, I've dropped on the link to Agile Moose, which has got a list of all the different connotations of this, with all the links then going off from it. So they've got a single site. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. It's awesome. This was one of the things that helped me really drive my career path. What I did was an exercise with someone at a conference, and it came up at a few times. It seemed to be something that people like doing at conferences, is they introduce this model, they talk people through it, and then they get them to score themselves on a 0 to 10 in each of the sections, and then say where they want to be within 6 months, work out which of the sections they want to level up, and then they look at the resources available, or they chat to people who might know a bit more about professional coaching, maybe someone know a bit more about facilitation. And they work out, okay, this is what I want to do to get myself from a 4 to a 6 in that space. That exercise, if you work with a community of coaches, of scrum masters, of agile practitioners, whatever you want, that is a gold mine of information. That is how you can actually help people control their career. They will own it. They will then work out what they're doing. They will review it in 3 months to 6 months' time and say where they are. We used to share these at Ministry of Justice. We had an area for the Scrum Master community of practice. We had our team charter in the middle of what we were doing as a community of Scrum Masters. And then we had, sorry, I keep having to remember which side my camera focuses on. We had next to it each of our individually scored Agile Coaching Competency Frameworks to say where we were and where we wanted to be. The idea behind that was so we could hold each other to account to it. People forgot to use it after a little while, and it just became real estate space used up that wasn't used. So if you are doing it, review it often, make it part of your culture as a group. If you have regular communities of practice get together, I know Terence does them because his were friggin' awesome, just because I was slightly involved. If you have them, every now and then, ask the group, do we feel we need to update these? Do we feel we need to review these? How are we growing ourselves as professionals? It can be pretty cool in that space. But yeah, have a look on the website. There's tons of facilitation, tons of mentoring, teaching, coaching, understanding that. So these are a couple of tools, more in-depth tools, and we're going to be using some of these in the case studies and the exercise that we'll shortly be going into. I have been naughty and I didn't actually put a slide in to remind me to stop for a 5-minute break. So I'm going to completely go over that and we're going to carry on for a minute. I'm going to assume people will turn off their cameras and disappear for a minute if they need to have a break. And then the group will just reintroduce the topics later on. So don't worry if you're desperate for a loo break. I know I've been going for about an hour, but in a couple of minutes, it will be breakout areas. And as a group, you can just bugger off for a minute and come back and still join in. So what I want to focus on here, I have a personal belief that most of the problems that we see within organizations is not actually down to coaching. You can coach someone as much as possible. You can learn loads and loads and loads of stuff as an agile coach. You can learn each of the bloody frameworks inside and out. You can be as purist as you want. Yeah, it's not going to really solve the problem. You can sit people down and be a purist coach and say, so what do you want to do? The problem's in your head, not in my head. And you can listen to them. You give them time to think. Maybe they're going to come up with some cool stuff. But most of the time, when you're there as an agile coach, they can be wanting you to give them some guidance, some mentorship, some of the answers. So that's why you tend to sort of dive around a little bit around the agile coaching competency framework. So where I found the biggest value you can add to an organization when you turn up there, when you look at their problems, is facilitation. How are they spending their time together? How are they communicating together? Are they actually using time well? Are they coming up with outcomes? Or are they just really good at spending 8 hours a day in meetings? So outcomes, not meetings, is what I want to focus on. When you're looking at transforming a team or an organization, why? Why are you doing this? Why is someone saying there's a problem here? Ask questions, gather information, interview. That's what I said earlier on, mentioned us. Go around with a few surveys, gather some data, and start playing that back to them as well. Hold up the mirror to what you've learned. Understand the journey that they've come from, that they've been on, what they tried before, what didn't work well for them as well, the history, the timeline of the company, the organization, the team of the people, and the outcomes that they're expecting. If they're asking you to be their coach, to help them to work with the team, whether you're team scrum master, whether you're an enterprise coach trying to transform the whole organization, or whether you're an agile coach working across a few scrum masters, what are people expecting? Or are they just waving their wand and hoping magic happens? There is a journey. You're looking at climbing a mountain there with a lovely picture. What are people expecting to see on the way, and how can you communicate this? So put down there about having a roadmap, working out a plan, how you're going to achieve this. Draw it with people, draw a mountain range, draw a road going up that bloody mountain, draw next to it a few things that you might go past, a few experiences that you might have, a few outcomes, a few ways that you can prove that you are transforming this team, this group, the organization. Really focus on that. I put down at the bottom there, billing is cool. So the reason I'm saying that, I'm a contractor, I'm a freelancer. I see way too many people who turn up and they will bill for 6 months, they will do stuff. What? How can you show that you've made a difference? Have you just created a set of stabilizers for the company that the second you disappear, it's screwed. It reverts back to its old practices, its old mindset. Have you actually introduced a proper paradigm shift, a change in the organization, a change in the culture? That is gold. That is where the value is as a coach. I'm slightly at risk saying this in this conversation because Terence can quite easily say shit's gone back to normal as I left HMRC, but I'm hoping there was a few things that stayed in. Oh, he's turned the camera off. It's that bad. Right. So what I put down in the bottom right there is an example of focusing on outcomes. So that was a plan I put together for an organization I engaged with about a well-facilitated meeting. So I had to think, why was I facilitating this conversation with them? What was it they were after? The outcome, quite simply, they wanted to prioritize roadmap for the next quarter. Why was it important? They needed to line up some suppliers, some contracts. There was some shithousery that had to be done within the rest of the organization that we had to help them with. And how are we going to know that we've actually achieved this by the end of this 2-hour conversation, this 2-hour well-facilitated meeting? Well, we want consensus from the SLT. And we want them to sign off and to say, the roadmap's all cool, or is there any sort of problems? So that was how I started planning out the session. That was what I used as my guiding principles to make sure that that the session was going to be good, that the time we were going to spend together was right, and that we'd actually hit the outcome. I then created an agenda using the POWER agenda setting. If you look at POWER as an acronym, you start off with your purpose. Sorry, if you look at small bullet points first before you look at the second ones, because the second lot is actually one that I sent out recently with someone. Purpose, why is this meeting necessary? The outcomes, what we're wanting to achieve in a meeting, where there's value in it, what's in it for them. We're asking people to turn up for a meeting, to spend time with us. What's the bloody point? They could spend their time so many other ways, especially when you look with execs, balancing their calendars, they need to see why this meeting is important. Why should they say yes to this and no to everything else? Engagement, how are you going to keep people engaged? You can use tooling. Are you going to have drawing at times? Are you going to have people moving around the room? Give them a bit of warning about it. Otherwise, you start a call and you put it on your slide number 4, telling people to grab a pen and paper. What are the roles and responsibilities? Who's doing what? Who's going to be the facilitator? Who's co-facilitating? Who's going to be running different breakout rooms? Just so they know who to expect to see within the room. So the example I've got there, I did remove names and everything to make sure it was all safe to share. But I recently ran a team canvas exercise. There's a link there to the team canvas. And that was how I used the POWER agenda to make sure they knew what to expect, how they were going to come into the room. I did have to use Teams for it, talked about the tooling that we were using, and even put down at the bottom, please commit your time and turn up to the bloody session to try to actually get the people into the room. POWER agenda setting with the thinking about the outcomes of what we're after from the meeting, the slight bit that I put in the last slide. I know outcomes exist within POWER as well. That can really help add focus to why we're getting people together, why we're trying to spend our time a certain way. Next one I want to introduce, touch on the trumps, the 6 trumps, as I have now been assured from my previous slide. The 4 C's model from training from the back of the room. Being a bit cheeky, I put down a link there to say my normal workshop meetups that I'll organise. I try to organise everything around the training from the back of the room technique. Here, I've done a bit of a bastardised version. I haven't really followed it too well. But if you can use it, it's fantastic and it ensures people are engaged. So you start off with connection as a first C. Connect the room to a subject. Get them talking about a problem, about a thing that they have in common, and that is linked to the purpose of the workshop. Introduce them to a concept that will help them with that problem space, that thing that they were talking about. Maybe it's something that will solve it. Maybe they were talking about, isn't it annoying having to fill out all these Gantt charts for these projects that we're on? And then suddenly you introduce the now, next, later format of a roadmap. Or maybe you introduce some other form of planning, or how we can do bigger room planning or something to stop them using Gantt charts and work in a better, more inspect and adapt way. And then you go into concrete practice, them actually using it. Stop going over theory, stop barking at the front of a room, give people space to actually try it out, get them to create the roadmap that they need for their thing, and then get them to reflect on it. There's loads of exercises that Sharon talks about in her book, tons and tons about getting a room to reflect. One of them is a memory wall that I mentioned earlier, about drawing out your picture of your experience. Then maybe a couple of weeks later, you look at your pictures and you write some words around it to see how much of you remember. Then maybe a couple of months later, you go back to your memory wall, you draw another picture, you add on it, you increase your memory wall. You see how you can trigger, how a picture is better than the words, how you writing something down on a piece of paper is better than you constantly reading something, how you're reconfirming your knowledge. Put down the next few slides for examples, but actually just the next one, because I took this from a slide deck where I'm sharing a few different exercises using the 4C model. Now, here is how I've used the 5 dysfunctions of a team model with a team. I've started off with the senior managers, and I've done a 1, 2, 4 rule, liberating structure. I covered it briefly earlier. Got them to write down what the problems that exist within senior management teams. Got them to come together, all talking about it, all writing it down on paper, talking about one of the trumps, talking about it, another trump, walking around a bloody room, another trump. We've got 3 trumps being mentioned already. It's short, 4th trump as well. God, I'm good at this, I didn't realise. So straight away, 4 trumps being used just in the C1, the connection. C2, introduce a concept to them, so the 5 dysfunctions of a team model. Talk them through each of the levels within it. If you're not familiar with it, have a Google for the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Fantastic book by Lencioni. If you really want to dive into something else, there's a company called Adventures with Agile, which I do some work through, which Simon Powers is the owner of. And they've got a work package that's completely free to download called the Team Genesis model, or it might just be called Team Genesis. Have a Google for that one. I think you just have to enter your email into it and you get sent a few newsletters. And it talks about a load of team formation techniques, including team canvases, team charters, building that, and running through the 5 dysfunctions workshop. It literally talks about a workshop that I would use here. So then you would run through that workshop and get the team to fill it in at the C3. They then start applying to the lovely 5 dysfunctions pyramid some preloaded sentences from Team Genesis, where you can create your own and add your own ones on there. And the group will have a conversation as to where they think each dysfunction exists within each of these sentences. Getting the right answer is not really the solution and the thing that we're after here. It's getting a group talking about and acknowledging these problems and these dysfunctions can exist. At a later point, they will then start reflecting where these dysfunctions exist within themselves. You then move into your conclusion exercise, share your experience. They walk around the room, they talk to each other, talk about what they've learned, how they could use this possibly as a shared language as a group talking about dysfunction in the future. So that's a 1 hour workshop, possibly a 90-minute workshop, written out within a 5C model, introduced a couple of, the 4C model, introduced a couple of liberating structures and a fair few of the trumps all in one place. Really simple model. I'm not necessarily going to have time for us to go into it right now, but we will in our breakout rooms very briefly. I know with Terence and with a facilitation clinic that we tried spinning up at HMRC, we spent not long, maybe 3 minutes, I think it was, writing out a few workshops, a few problems that we had using the 4C model straight away. And I think we managed to create 2 or 3 of them pretty easily. So give it some practice. You will have a chance within breakouts. I noticed Terence has come off mute, so I'm wondering whether I'm about to be warned about time.
No, I'm going to say I no longer have Prem with me, so you may have to do the breakout rooms due to my inabilities.
Okie dokie. I've realised something I've then done as well. That is fine. I will have to stop sharing in a bit. I found this lovely feature within Zoom where I was doing a training workshop earlier, and if you have to share your audio within Zoom, it then buggers up loads of other features for you later on when you're trying to actually see what the facilitator is or everyone else in the group. So I've actually lost loads of features right now, so I'm going to have to stop screen sharing in a bit because it's trying to share my audio for a video that I'm not sharing. So that's great. Right. Oh, I did put a little brief break time in. What I'll do then is I'll give everyone 3 minutes. I'll set a timer for it. We will then go into the case studies. And so we're going into the plan for the workshop, how we're going to start applying this, everything that we've learned so far. And we're actually going to run it on a couple of case studies that I've kind of created of real problems that I've experienced in the past that I'm sure you're all going to cringe at, and you can add to as well. So please don't just bugger off completely. I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes, go off a quick comfort break, grab yourself a drink, and then we'll move on to the next slide.
Sounds good.
Cool. And John, thank you for the LinkedIn invite. Just seeing that, I'll accept it in a second.
I think it might be good for you to come and join our global community of Agile coaches.
Oh, cool. Which one are you with?
Capgemini.
Don't get your hands off.
It's always nice connecting with people. I'm a little bit tied down at the moment, but we can have a chat afterwards. Actually, this is.
I like the way
Mr.
Mr. T comes in and sort of says, "Get your hands off." Terence, you know full well, mate, that I spend most of my life supporting you anyway.
I know.
And creating stuff. No, but just good to get your experience and your thoughts and brought in and shared with the wider group.
Yep, more than happy to have a chat. I know Terence is desperate to get me back. Some unfinished business, I think. Put it politely.
A little bit of unfinished business, yes. Look what you started. It's
about introducing the culture change, isn't it?
Yes, yeah, definitely.
That's one of my favorite topics.
It's easy to talk about, very, very difficult to do, and very, very easy to cause damage.
Very.
Not just to the company, but to the people that are going through it as well. Something that I put myself on a few months ago, and that was when I was working with Terence as well, was put myself on a mental health first aider course, which I think there's some brilliant stuff in there, especially around the coaching space.
So one of the things we're actually building at a group level at the moment within Capgemini is, from a coaching point of view, training for coaches to be focusing on mindfulness and how mindfulness and agility can be brought together, and as coaches bring in mindfulness as part of your coaching activity.
That's really good, and that fits into on my journey. It was being happy, being comfortably uncomfortable. So my background, especially when I was a developer, is a very typical developer of just want to care about the code, didn't really care about anything else going on. So the going into the coaching space and seeing the importance all the time is up, seeing the importance about mindfulness and everything, and people doing literally sitting in circles. I'm talking about sort of doing yoga chants, sort of yoga exercises, doing sort of like throat exercises, all this sort of very odd stuff to me. I had to get myself very comfortable in that space, and I then saw the value in it. So it's also like another thing I like saying is I love being proven wrong. If I initially went into a situation and thought that's not going to work, something doesn't smell right here. Like the team I worked with that was doing 3-week sprints, I thought, well, that's not 2 weeks like every other team I worked with. Something's got to be wrong here. I saw it actually worked for them. There was a reason they were doing it, and it worked. Eventually, they did end up moving it back to 2-week sprints because we solved the reason, the problems and stuff eventually. But it's interesting. Mindfulness, being self-aware, and also being able to sort of push yourself and challenge yourself a bit.
Yeah.
Rightio. Okay, I should have stopped screen sharing just so I could do the breakout rooms. I'm going to stop for a second whilst people are coming back. And I do have the breakout rooms button. That's
excellent. Good. I'm glad you do. Future tip for anyone else: if you're using iOS on a iPad, doesn't have a breakout room button.
Okie dokie. Oh dear. I'm not forcing people straight into rooms just yet, am I? Nope, that's good. And so we're going to do 2 rooms. Let me do that split. Terence, are you cool if I put you in a room?
Yeah, of course.
Right, I'm going to be mean, and I'm going to put you in this room. Sorry, guys, we're in a room with Terence. I won't force you into the rooms yet because I'm giving you instructions and I haven't shared my screen again. First things first, I'm going to give you access to the slides. You have edit access to the slides, which means you can obviously butcher them and ruin my presentation for the next few slides. Please don't put any funny pictures for the next couple that I then go on to as we are broadcasting onto YouTube. People have tried doing that before. I have put a version in, so we can always go back to the previous slides. With this, you will be needing access to them when you go into your breakout rooms. You won't be needing them just yet. What we're going to be doing for this exercise, oh, and I'm going to go back to the screen share. Okay, everyone's got the screen share back again, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the breakout rooms, I've created 3 different case studies. We only have 2 groups though. So for group 1, go to case study 1. For group 2, go to case study 2. If you smash through it, have a look at case study 3 and start coming up with some ideas for that. What we are going to be doing for these is look at the problem that's been put out there. Get a bit creative if you want as well. I'll put down a little note at the bottom. I'm not going to say these case studies I'm precious about. If you want to make up a conversation that happened beforehand or afterwards, or that you saw another problem in the organization, just you as a group, come up with a cool situation, a cool problem. And what we want to do is apply some of this to it. So look at some of the tools, some of the techniques I've talked about, where we're looking at the 10 tools, where I was trying to link them all back to parts of your body. Whether it's the, please put down on there as a second bullet point, if you can, use the power agenda or the 4C model to create a workshop. But I would expect, because of each of the problems, you might be looking at a bit of a transformation roadmap, a few things that you might want to do. So think big as your group, think about what you would do to tackle these problems, think about what other problems might exist underneath, the things that you might not see within the brief that you might want to add on to it. Get creative, have a little bit of fun. So we've got 15 minutes for this. That's okay time-wise, isn't it? We'll see how we go after 10 minutes. I'll be dropping in and out of the groups. If you look bored shitless, then we just stop it and we come back and we do a group share. Because I wanted to spend about 10-15 minutes with each of the groups sharing what we've done. First thing you want to do in each of the groups is nominate someone to play it back to the room of what you've gone and said and created. For each of the case studies, there is a second slide for that group to put their information on. You can type in a big box, or you can click and add your own text areas, add your own images in there, do what you need to. It's not as snazzy as using Mural, Miro, one of those lovely tools, but a text box isn't the worst thing in the world when you start dragging them around and each co-creating with it. I've been forced into using this as my main tool for collaboration in my current engagement, and I've got used to it, which is bad. So I'm forcing on you guys too tonight. Cool. Any questions? Now, I'm going to be very mean, and I'm going to ask Jeff to play back what we're going to do. Sorry, Jeff. Do you mind saying what the instructions are, what we're going to be doing next?
We've got 15 minutes.
Oh, no, you really got to decide. That's cheating.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. I'm going to pass this over to John.
So what we're going to do, we're going to go into our different teams. We're going to read the case study. We're then going to, either using Power or 4C, work out what we would do to overcome or to provide ideas to resolve that situation that is in the case study, referencing the sections that we've gone through already, the body parts. And if we get to finish hour 1, either case study 1 or case study 2, depending on your group, you can go on to case study 3.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Sorry, a bit mean picking on people, I know that. But that can be a nice technique if you're running workshops, if you're running training, just to see if the instructions are landed with a group before you chuck them into breakouts and you realize that it hasn't quite fitted in with everyone's thought process. Right, so I'm going to set a breakout room so everyone.
I'd just like to thank Jeff for playing the role so beautifully there to put forward that learning point.
Yep.
Thank you, Jeff. I did pick on you. I'm sorry, Jeff, but it's good. Okie dokie. Just double checking. Right, Sorry, there's a tick box missing. Right. I knew this would happen, me having to create the rooms. I warned you, Terence, I'll be staring at the screen as I did it. Okay, so everyone should be forced into rooms. Everyone's got access to the chat at the moment, so you should be able to click into it and to edit it. Press the button for help, and I'll dive into the rooms if you need me. Set a timer for 15. I'll jump in and out, and if we do have time, we'll come back early. Cool. Yeah. See you in a bit.
Cheers.